Hi, thank you everyone for staying for the graveyard shift and sticking around for what has hopefully been a fun day. My name's Yush. I'm the sales director, marketing director at Dimension Studio.
And my name's Gavin, and I'm the CEO of Unsigned. Possibly the worst picture of me that I've seen for a while, but there we go. Hopefully slightly better in real life. So I'm the founder of Unsigned, which is a business been going for about 12 years now.
They do say the camera ad's on £10 or 50. So Dimension is a 3D production studio. We're based in London. We operate all around the world. We create virtual humans, that's either with volumetric video or virtual humans as avatars. We create virtual worlds. These are either seen in games, music videos, or in LED volumes for feature films. And then our final part of what we do is virtual production, which is the means of creating content using LED volumes and content created in Unreal.
And Unsigned, so as I said, 12 years ago, with a good friend of mine and business partner, Guy Berryman, who's the bass player in Coldplay, and myself, we set up the business 12 years ago, fundamentally based on talent. So everything that we do has talent at the core of our business, whether that's brands, whether that's the management talent, or whether that's creation of IP with the talent that we represent or other agencies represent. And here you can see some examples of who they are. So Norman Reedus, Daryl from The Walking Dead, Helena Christensen, and Mia Mon, who's a big content creator. So kind of a spread there of some of the people that we directly manage, and then brands we look after, things like 3, Bungie, different sort of brands that we treat as people. Sorry, I'm stealing. Go.
It's fine. I wanted to start this presentation off with a little trip down memory lane. Because at the moment there's a lot of talk about virtual humans and digital doubles and replicas, but actually it's not a new technology or a new concept. It's something that's been, it's something that has been worked on since the early 80s. The only thing that has really changed is the fact that the technology's got better. And this whole scene, if you remember from The Matrix, is using avatars to be able to create those effects. So the avatars that we're creating today are actually just the next generation of avatars because the tools have allowed us to do that. The way we look at it is that a content revolution has arrived. And what we mean by that is that the way content is being produced has changed, consumption is changing, and audience engagement is changing. Mixed reality, spatial computing, games engines are all basically enabling a lot of people to be able to create content without the traditional VFX methods that used to be in place. So what's come together to make this happen? So there's 6 things that we feel have come together to enable this content revolution. Devices, so you're all very familiar, I'm sure, with virtual reality devices. Meta's presentation yesterday was showing the Quest 3 now slashed to $500. Also, their Ray-Bans, which are now for recording and voice activation. The worlds that are being created are now becoming persistent. The tools for creation, like Unreal Engine or Unity, are now becoming prevalent and easier to work with. The technologies are advancing very quickly, so the creation of either volumetric videos and avatars is becoming easier and more democratized. If we look at awareness, films like Ready Player One brought a dystopian vision of the future where everyone's wearing virtual reality headsets and running around like headless chickens. But what it did enable was millions and millions of people to become aware of the technologies that allow this kind of content to exist. And then finally, this kind of mass adoption. There's been a huge rise and kind of fall in the last year or two of digital collectibles and crypto. All of those things have all enabled these different technologies to become more prevalent.
And I guess, so if you look here, Ava Hertz, this is so the world's first supermodel metahuman. Ava I've managed for 10 years. And what we work together with on Dimension is how do we create a metahuman of Ava that we can utilize in lots of different ways. So whether it's from a fashion point of view, the clothing point of view, from a beauty point of view, this is an iteration that's about 7 months old now, and bearing in mind that the tech has moved on so quickly. Ava was incredibly interested. So the reality is, with talent, you've got to have someone with a passion and an interest in how to and what makes it different and where can she kind of position herself in the business. So from us, it was a very kind of key thing that the talent themselves really drove this. They wanted to do it, they asked the questions, and they're part of that process. So every single piece there that we've worked on, Ava has been involved in that all the way through.
So why, Gav?
So I guess fundamentally why she was created is because Ava was interested, she wanted to do it. The conversations that I've been having as an agency owner, in terms of from whether it be the British Fashion Council, whether it be different brands in the space, they're all looking for how to access this world, and whatever that world is, whether the confusing terms of Web3 and metaverse and gaming and all those different terms, how do they get in there? How do they access? And so what we wanted to do with Ava was show that someone with a trusted profile, so someone who's got that brand heritage, someone that's understood and respected in the field, can then create this being, which is something new, it's challenging, there's all the, we'll talk about it more, there's lots of rights issues that surround it. She fronts that. And so I guess for us and Ava, it was kind of a real challenge to do it. How do we do it? And again, she would say things like, it's really odd, I feel like I'm giving birth to myself, because she's looking at every single bit of her in the most incredible detail, and it just interested her. So I guess that was why. And then trying to satisfy marketeers' questions that were coming to us looking as an agency for new PRable projects. So that's kind of in a overall, and also just do something different, right? You've got to be in it. You've got to try doing things that are different. There's so many marketing concepts that we've all done. We've tried again, and yes, they work, and yes, they get you the results you think you want. But actually trying something new and different, we've got to be in it. We've got to be trying to do it. And luckily with Ava, because she's someone that likes to challenge the norm, I guess that's kind of why. Does that answer your?
It does. And I think just to touch on one point, the use cases don't necessarily have to be defined until she's created, right? So the beauty of working in a games engine like Unreal is that we can use a metahuman, create the character, create the environment, render out the content, and use it across multiple platforms, and then change it again using the same asset, different environment, push it out onto social media, push it out onto YouTube, TikTok. We can stage any scene that we want and keep going once that core asset's created. So then when you're talking to clients about maximizing their budget and getting the most bang for their buck, it makes it quite an easy conversation for us, because we're not having to rehire talent. We're not having to buy in clothes. We can create the environment in front of a computer. We can model the talent how we wish, however the talent needs to be modeled because of the brand, and then render that content out. So it can all be done in-house without the need for flying around the world and shooting different stuff. So that's given her new client base a different perspective on how to use it. It's not about necessarily she needs to be in Roblox, or she needs to be in Sansa, or she needs to be in Sedja. It's not about a metaverse activation. It's about creating assets that can live beyond just her physically having to be somewhere. I'm going to talk over this video, but essentially there was several steps we went through to try and create Ava. Those of you familiar with it, we scanned her face and her body to get her measurements and her likeness. We pushed that through a program called Reality Capture. We mocapped Ava to capture all of her walk and her nuance and her idiosyncrasies of her face. We used Marvelous Designer to create the clothes simulation. We textured her hair, many iterations of the hair. I think it's true, and I might be making this up, but I don't think there's a single image with Ava with her hair down. That's correct? And throughout her career, her hair is always tied back. So for us as designers, that's something really important to her that we have to replicate in this digital double. The skin, the clothing, the texturing that all went along with it. Obviously then there's the makeup, the stage design, everything that you can see here, the lighting effects to be able to create this content. And then and then you have it. You've got a piece that was created entirely in-house that can be moved, modeled, and because we have Ava's motion data, we can create different scenes without her having to come back to the studio and reshoot and do stuff. If any of you are interested, that's the kind of the stack and the process that we use to go through. There's some gaps in that, I'm sure, but it gives you a broad brush of what we went. I think it's important just to show some beauty shots, really, just to show the quality of the work, because when you're working with talent of this caliber, protecting their image is everything. If it's not a good digital version of them, it's going to be unacceptable. And so you have to work really hard to make sure that every aspect of her features are captured. And that kind of comes down to having a good art team, but also having a very good client who can actually articulate what it is that's missing. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think it's also important that when you're working with someone like Ava or someone in the public eye, you're used to seeing her in a certain way. So we work with lots of big makeup artists or hair artists that they're then involved in this process too. So you're not removing them from this part of the job. They're then working with us to then create these looks. So you'll have someone like a Pat McGrath or those makeup artists that are well known in the field that are then working on the metahuman side as well. So from a marketing point of view or from brand point of view, as a brand, if you're a beauty brand or if you're a skincare brand or if you're a hair brand, you're then working with Dimension or with the talent to create your looks in this way. So it's not replacing anything, it's giving you more opportunity and more brand voice than exists if it's just Ava doing one look, because within one video we can do however many looks we want. There was a part that we did this, and you did something with pink hair, and suddenly we were like, actually Ava looks amazing with the pink hair, and we're doing something now with a color brand because of those reasons. So it's stupid things like that that actually come throughout the process of making it.
I know we're talking about Ava, but I put some examples in of other types of metahuman that have been created for different types of brands in retail. So this is a cosmetics brand, NARS. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's not my brand. But the talent that we've created here are modeled based on reference images, not actual people, and they're stylized in a way that gives the client the ability to be appealing to a broad range of people without polarizing everyone based on their physicality or their specific looks. The pushback that some of the community give about this activation is that it's not a reflection of true makeup, which is a valid argument, right? But the actual point of this is not to demonstrate the makeup. It's about building personality around colors. It's about building personalities and stories in different environments that aren't visited by the traditional customer. So this isn't necessarily focused on the person who goes to Selfridges and buys NARS cosmetics. It's basically focused on someone who's flicking through TikTok and will be influenced by an influencer rather than someone on a catwalk. So it's a completely different audience rather than the same old. We had the pleasure of working with Neymar for an activation with Puma. It's a really small image, but the top left image there, the one on the left is him, the one on the right is his digital double that we created. And that was created all the way down to every single tattoo on his body. He was then animated and used in a campaign for Puma over in the States. Another example of virtual influencers. So another use case for digital humans rather than something being created with a metahuman. The one on the top left is called Catty, and she's branded with Calvin Klein. So she wears a lot of Calvin Klein goods. The reason Calvin Klein worked with her specifically, even though she's an avatar, is because she's got no baggage, she's got no backstory, she's not going to wake up, face down, pissed up outside a nightclub. That's not going to happen, and this appeals to them for that specific younger demographic that they're trying to appeal to. This isn't about a kind of a seedy kind of activation. Then probably the most famous virtual influencer is Little Michaela, who models all types, all range of clothes and jewelry can be seen at premieres, fashion shows. There's a whole massive team behind it. I think, I'm going to get this number wrong, but I think they were valued at about 125 million as a company, based on the revenue that she generates through social content and through branding partnerships. Here's another example. A music video, a complete music video being made with Snoop Dogg. I don't know if anyone will see it. The whole video is made in Unreal. Snoop Dogg provided the mocap, and then they've created his character as an old guy based on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Larry David, if anyone's familiar with it. And I met these guys actually last week in LA, and it's just two of them who have made this, right? And neither of them come from a development background, and neither of them came from a programming background. They spent the last 6 to 8 months learning Unreal and learning how to create with metahumans. They both come from content creation backgrounds. James is a filmmaker, and Jesse was a YouTuber. I guess he still is. Was really big when he started in 2006. He's got 10.1 million followers, and him and James set up a company to work specifically in creating music videos in Unreal, and neither of them knew how to do it, and now they're doing all this kind of stuff. So in terms of democratizing the content and the means of production, this is a really interesting path that we're all going down. So in terms of, forgive me, I don't know the makeup of the audience, but if you've got teams in-house that can play with this stuff, then you should let them loose on it, because it doesn't necessarily require you to have a massive background in design or development. This one's for you.
Yeah, I don't know if did anyone watch this? Did they see it? Yeah, so it's kind of, we were literally just launching at this time, and this was out, and I was, oh great, I'm going to get all these lovely questions from the press the next day, which did exactly happen. And it's that kind of, it just puts the context out there in terms of making you challenge, you think, you're kind of working where we're at, and it really did make us all, the conversations that then came to me about the rights issues, how are you going to challenge that, how are you discussing it. And I think it's worth saying at this point that as an old bloke that's now, I guess, been representing talent for 27 years, I've been through these iterations where we've had time and time again, when digital photography first came out, everyone's like, how are you going to protect that? There's all these different, then the cell phones with the cameras on it. We don't have conversations at the moment about protecting your talent's rights. This has enabled us to have those conversations. So we're now having those conversations, and we're setting this blueprint together for the legal basis of how do you do that. So I can travel. So Sunday, I'm away next week. We're doing a project with an actress in Saudi, and we're developing this whole sort of concept around these areas. But actually, I know that when I go to different territories with that talent, I will see her images being used. That usage period is well gone. So as a marketing company or PR, you're then exposing yourself essentially for your brand ambassadors are out there being promoted when actually they shouldn't be. So I know we're going on, oh, we're here. So yeah, going on to working with blockchain technology, and where you're tracking this and where you're using it, your data is so much more specific. So not just how successful has your brand campaign been in terms of sales, but actually who is engaging, what new audience are you interacting with, where should you put that, not just the spend, but your attention on building communities. So for us, when we're talking now about fandoms, so when we look at, it's easier to sit with talent and discuss how to build their true fandoms when you're talking about the meta-human, because it gives them a new area to be able to discuss. So this is kind of where, as an agent and a proactive agent, hopefully, you're sitting with talent, but you're creating stuff together. So you're co-owning these, whether we're investing into it, which is primarily what we're doing at the moment. So we'll invest either with the talent or on behalf of the talent. We co-own those IP, but the rights and the way that we're forming those rights negotiations are really tight. We don't have any of that with our traditional talent in any other field. So whether that's sport, whether it's beauty, whether it's fashion, this is wrapping that up and allowing us to have that conversation.
Key takeaways. Content is moving from 2D to 3D. All the means of production are pointing towards that direction. You'll see it coming more and more prevalent on broadcast. Apple Pro, when it releases next year, is already putting a slate of 3D content together. Assets that you create using these tools are flexible. They can be reused, repositioned, remodeled, re-rendered. So hopefully the cost of production goes down rather than having to rehire. Maturing platforms which were considered to be kids' playgrounds are actually becoming gold mines for certain brands, and building an audience for the future. So some of them are, they all need an audit. Not all of them are relevant, but if you can find the right audience on the right platform, you'll certainly find good opportunities. And then also when you're pulling together your production partners and doing stuff, especially creating digital content and digital talent, work with partners that put the talent at the center of the production and the ownership of the rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. How far away do you think we are from, like, for example, 3D model, like rendering of humans in something like Unreal or something else being like genuinely indistinguishable? Because in many ways, like photography has probably got to that point, and other but like that some of those examples you show us, how far away do you think we are from, you know, that genuine point of not being able to know whether it's human or 3D rendered?
Are you familiar with volumetric video? So avatars is scanning someone and then modeling, and it's kind of like it's got the modelers and the artist's creative license to create that likeness. A volumetric video, a volumetric stage is a cylinder of around 106 cameras shooting either 2K or 4K. And what that does is capture the performance in the middle as a video asset rather than it being, so it's a one-to-one. So it's not a CGI replicant. It's the same as a 2D video, but it's actually 3D, because when you merge all those feeds, you create a 3D asset. Therefore, when you chuck that into Unreal, that's a real person in there. It's not, there's no uncanny valley. It's as if I'm talking to you. Where it gets interesting is volumetric video at the moment is linear. So what we record is what you see. So the film Whitney Houston, has anyone seen it? Anyone? The crowds that you can see in Whitney Houston, we generated in our studio by capturing about 500 people. And then we were able to replicate them, change their clothing, and scatter them around the stadium to make 80,000 people. You couldn't have done that with CGI and kept that level of closeness to the core audience, because you would have known that it would have been an avatar. So the volumetric video exists. Where it gets interesting is when you can basically animate volumetric video, and they can be directions based on your own movement. That's down the road. Are we good? Thank you. Cheers. Thank you very much.